Welcome to this channel of Young Pilgrims. My name is Sebastian, and today we're going to continue with a series of videos about the festive cycle. This time we are going to study about the festivity of Yom Kippur, a festivity with a great teaching about death to carnality and a great prophetic shadow about the eternal redemption. Yom Kippur, like the rest of the festivities, is mentioned in the book of Leviticus chapter 23. From the verse 26 to the 32, we find the instruction that the Eternal gives Moses on how they should remember that date. We read the following in this part of the writing. Verse 26. The Eternal says to Moses, the 10th day of this 7th month is the day of atonement. Hold a sacred assembly and deny yourselves, and present a food offering to Elohim. Do not do any work on that day, because it is the day of atonement, when atonement is made for you before the Eternal your Elohim. Those who do not deny themselves on that day must be cut off from their people. I will destroy from among their people anyone who does any work on that day. You should do not work at all. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generation to come wherever you live. It is a day of Shabbat rest for you, and you must deny yourselves from the evening of the ninth day of the month until the following evening. You are to observe your Shabbat. And the first thing that we find in this part of the Bible is that this day was to be remembered on the 10th day of the 7th month, 10 days after Yom Teruah, the festivity that you can remember that we studied in our last video. The next thing we see is that it will be a day of atonement. From here we can see the prophetic shadow. It's very interesting, no? And it will be a day to cleanse sins. Continue, we find that there will be a holy convocation. It will be a set day in which there will be not labor, and it is entirely dedicated to the eternal. It will also be a day of affliction for souls. And how is this? Well, how is the affliction of the souls? Here we have to understand that this is the core of the festivity, afflictions. The atonement had to do on the one hand with freedom from sins and with the joy of not having to pay with life from them, but on the other hand it had to do with a feeling of reflection on how it was the sinner who should have been in the place of the innocent victim who died from their sins. At that time, the animals that were sacrificed. That reflection brought a affliction, and with it a death to carnality, because it was useless to be justified if sinful carnality continued to live there in the spirit. That day they grieve as they show their wanting to die to the life of in transgressions. Something also very important is that the affliction was symbolically represented with a fast. That they did not eat or drink anything. This as a representation of maturity of the flesh and death to their passions, living a more spiritual life. Continue, we also have the elements of the sacrifice, which represents the covering from that victim, the one who will die from the transgression of the people. In following verse, we see that the importance of setting aside that day is emphasized also. We can find this. Those who did not do so will be cut off from the people of Israel. And this lets us see also the importance of that festivity. It's very important. It was very important for the people of Israel, and we will find out at the end of the video that it's also very important to to us to celebrate this festivity. And well, finally, in this part of the Bible, of the chapter 23, it's clarified that they must start from the sunset of the ninth until the sunset of the 10th day. Remember that the Hebrew day begins at the end of the sunset, the Arab. So that is why it is from the ninth, the sunset of the ninth, the ninth day until the sunset of the 10th day. In addition, well, to this part of the scripture, we have another part in Leviticus 16, which gives us something very important about this festivity. In this verse, from the verse 7 onwards, we see that in addition to the aforementioned sacrifices, there will be two others. These will be by two male goats. Both will receive the burning of from sins, but one will be sent to the desert, dying there, and another will be sacrificed on the altar. Both will die from a time of sin known as Avon. This sin is the sin of ignorance, known as the sin of ignorance, the transgression that the people did without knowing, or that was hidden also, but that in the end they were taken on count. The Eternal transmit with this with Moses the importance of making atonement also for this time of sin, since it counts the same as sins due to error or guilt. On that day of Yom Kippur, atonement was made from transgression due to the ignorance of the people or those that were hidden at that affect their relationship with the Eternal. So we see in that part, we can see in this part of the Bible the importance of the sacrifice that were made on that day. The importance also of the prophetic shadow that we are going to see now. So, well, moving on to the prophetic part, this festivity has a beautiful shadow and figure about what Yeshua will come to do and what he continued to do. The male goats that died to the ignorance represents, on the one hand, with some of them, the Messiah, who is the Korban that approached the altar to also die due to the ignorance in which the human being was carrying his transgressions. And on the other hand, it represents the adversary, Satan, with the other male goat, who will also bear the blame of ignorance in man because of the deception since the fall of the man, and who, contrary to the Messiah, will move away from the altar and he will go to die far away in the desert, thus representing this rebellion, but also his guilt and punishment. On the other hand, Yeshua also comes to represent the Kohen HaGadol, the highest priest, who, as we see in the book of Leviticus chapter 16, will enter the most holy place once a year, carrying the sacrifice of the male goat that will die on the altar, and when this providing coverage to the people so that they don't pay from their sins of ignorance. Yeshua, even after resurrection, entered the heavenly places where he is currently carrying his sacrifice and waiting to give the cover of future eternal redemption that all believers will now receive from him and from the Father's instructions, who waited by cleaning their garments. As we see, this festivity represent the act of covering that Yeshua is doing as the Korban, who also died from the transgression of man because of his ignorance, and how the Kohen HaGadol, who is intervening in the most holy place of the heavenly places, from the souls of believers who believe in him and follow his example. This is why it's very important that we, as believers of Yeshua, as believers of Torah, as believers of the Bible, also remember that day. And we can ask to ourselves, how do we do it? Well, following the example of Yeshua first. How? Dying to the ignorance through the study of the Bible and his example and the example, of Yeshua, and on the other hand, also afflicting our flesh, as we can read in Leviticus 23, dying to it symbolically through a fast that day, starting from the sunset of the 9th day to the sunset of the 10th day of the 7th month. And through a fast that day and a holy convocation, also stopping us from our work and reflecting on the destruction that day too. So we must remember that day, taking into account the sacrifice of Yeshua and also dying to our carnality. And well, we have come to the end of this video. Remember to give your like, and if you also have any question, write to the comments. Also, please help us by sharing this video. Well, that's all for this occasion. Thanks for joining. See you in the next time, and blessings.